My friends, we are not here merely to observe life. We are here to create it, not with our hands, not with effort, but with the power of our imagination, the one and only creative force in existence. You may have been taught that you must work harder, be better, wait longer, that some force outside you determines your future. But I tell you, your future is shaped not by time or toil, but by your assumptions, by what you dare to believe as true. So I ask you now, can you live in the end? Can you dwell in the feeling that what you desire is already yours? You see, creation is already finished. Every possibility already exists. The version of you who is healthy, wealthy, in love, at peace, that version is real. And the only thing standing between you and that life is your refusal to occupy it in consciousness. To live in the end is to stop asking, stop hoping, and instead become. It is to wake each morning not wondering if your desire will come, but thanking life as though it already has. Do not concern yourself with the how. That is not your part. Your role is to feel the truth of your desire fulfilled now, to dwell in it, to saturate your mind with it, to breathe it as though it were the only reality, because it is. What you now see and touch are echoes of your former beliefs. The world is not your master, it is your mirror. And to change the reflection, you must change the assumption. This is not about pretending. It is not about forcing the world to comply. It is about being inwardly faithful to the unseen, walking as though the promise is already kept. You know, the world will conform. These events will align, people will shift. The bridge of incidents will rise beneath your feet, but only after you first claim the end within. So I say again, live in the end, feel it now, walk as it, speak from it. Let the old man of doubt fall away. You are not becoming, you already are. The moment you believe, truly believe, that you have received, you will. Not by luck, not by accident, but by law. A law as real as gravity, as exact as mathematics, as faithful as your own breath. Let others chase conditions. You, instead, occupy states. Let them react to the world. You, instead, create it from the silence within. Because what you dare to imagine as true and persist in will harden into fact. So, don't wait for the world to change. Live in the end, and the end will live through you. Imagination is not a passive faculty. It is the very engine of creation. It is through imagination that the invisible becomes visible, the unmanifested becomes form, and the unseen becomes the seen. Everything that now exists, every building, book, invention, or system, once lived first in the realm of imagination. Before it appeared in the world, it was imagined by someone who dared to believe in its reality before it had any physical evidence. This power is not reserved for the few, the talented, or the fortunate. It is the inheritance of every human being. It is the divine workshop within the soul, where we are constantly crafting the shape of our experiences, whether we realize it or not. The tragedy is that most people imagine unconsciously, reacting to the outer world rather than realizing they are its cause. They dwell in fear, in lack, in limitation, and so they perpetuate those very things. They use imagination destructively, imagining worst-case scenarios, rejection, sickness, and failure, and thus they breathe life into those conditions. But imagination used consciously becomes the seed of transformation. When we deliberately assume the feeling of our wish fulfilled, when we see ourselves not as we are, but as we desire to be, and persist in that vision, we awaken the creative force within. Imagination fused with feeling is the most potent force in existence. It is the law of assumption. Whatever you assume to be true, if persisted in, will become your reality. This is not fantasy or escapism. This is the way life operates, whether one acknowledges it or not. Imagination is the substance from which all things are made. It molds the formless energy of life into concrete form. And so, to change your life, you must first change your imagination. Begin by seeing differently within, and the world without will echo that change. Use your imagination not to wish, but to be, not to escape, but to create. The world will always respond, for it has no choice but to mirror the image you hold within. To inwardly accept without question that your desire is already realized. It means you do not wait for outer confirmation. You do not hope or long or strive. Instead, you inwardly rest in the state of already having. You feel it now, not someday, not when circumstances permit, but now, in this present moment. You let your inner conversations reflect your new reality. You walk, speak, think, and feel from the end, not toward it. This is not mere daydreaming or idle fantasy. It is a conscious shift in identity. You do not merely think about the desire, you become one with it. You feel the emotions that would naturally arise if what you wanted were true, if it were already yours. How would you carry yourself? What would you think? How would you respond to life? That is the state you must live from. This act impresses the subconscious mind, which does not argue, question, or analyze. It accepts whatever is impressed upon it through feeling and repetition. Once that impression is made, life rearranges itself to reflect the inner state. People, events, and circumstances begin to move in alignment with your assumption, not because you force them, but because consciousness is always projecting itself into form. You do not need to know how it will come about. The means are not your concern. The bridge of incidents, the seemingly ordinary or even miraculous events that lead to the fulfillment of your desire will unfold naturally. Your only task is to remain loyal to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That feeling is the secret. It is the door between the seen and the unseen. When you persist in it, you move beyond time. You bypass delay. You bring the unseen into visibility. Whatever you feel deeply and consistently to be true will become your experience. So ask yourself, not what you want, but who you would be if you had it, and then become that version of yourself in imagination. The rest will follow, for the world cannot help but reflect the state you dare to occupy, not to deny reality, but to refuse to be limited by it. The facts you now observe are merely the outpicturing of past assumptions and beliefs. They are not fixed truths. They are reflections, shadows cast by previous states of consciousness. If you accept them as unchangeable, you bind yourself to repeat them. But if you look beyond them, if you dare to see with the inner eye rather than the outer senses, you rise above them and create something new. The world will always attempt to confirm your current identity. If you believe you are limited, poor, unloved, or unworthy, life will present you with evidence to prove it. But that evidence is not permanent. It is the residue of old thought, the echo of yesterday's self-immute. If you persist in that belief, yes, the cycle continues. But the moment you assume a new state and refuse to accept present facts as the final word, you initiate change. This is why you must turn your attention inward and assume the feeling of your desired reality, regardless of what your senses report. You may have no money in your account. yet you assume the feeling of abundance. You may be ill, yet you assume the feeling of being whole. You may be alone, yet you dwell in the feeling of love fulfilled. When you do this, you are no longer reacting to life, you are directing it. To ignore the facts is to be faithful to the unseen. It is to know that consciousness is the only cause, and that the outer world must eventually conform to the new inner state. This requires discipline and persistence, for the outer world may resist for a time. Appearances may not change instantly, but do not be fooled. The shift has already begun. The moment you change your inner assumption, you are not bound by the evidence of your senses. You are bound only by what you accept as true. So choose wisely. Withdraw your attention from the unwanted and place it fully on what you wish to experience. The present facts will fade, and new ones will arise, shaped by the vision you have dared to believe in, not because they were real when you saw them, but because you made them real by your refusal to accept anything less. When you live from the end, you set in motion a power far greater than your reasoning mind can comprehend. The end, the fulfilled desire, the accomplished goal, the realized dream, becomes a defining reality in your consciousness. And once that end is accepted as real within, life begins to arrange itself around it. The means, though seemingly unknown at first, will unfold naturally, inevitably, and often unpredictably. You are not required to orchestrate every step. You are not meant to struggle with the how. Your task is singular, to claim the end and dwell in it. This is a spiritual law, not a strategy. In the realm of the unseen, cause and effect are reversed. Instead of action leading to results, it is inner conviction that shapes the path. When you assume the state of your wish fulfilled, you occupy the cause, and the effects must follow. The means, the path, the unfolding circumstances are not your concern. They are handled by the intelligence that responds to the imaginal act. Often the path will seem irrational, unplanned, even chaotic, but it is not random. It is the precise outworking of the end you have accepted. What matters is not how the result comes, but that it comes, and it will, provided you do not waver. To question the process, to worry about the details, is to step out of the state of the end. It is to mistrust the law. Do not be concerned if logic fails to show the way. Do not demand signs before you believe. The world will catch up, but it is always trailing your consciousness. The end determines everything. The moment you fully accept it as done, life begins its invisible work to bring it about through people, events, delays, sudden shifts, all perfectly aligned to fulfill what you already inwardly possess. You may find yourself moved into action, or you may be compelled to wait. You may lose something or someone, only to gain what your soul truly seeks. These are the means, perfect, mysterious, exact, but you will only see their meaning clearly when you remain faithful to the end. So you do not chase outcomes, manipulate steps, or fear detours. You return again and again to the end, feeling it, living from it, trusting it. For when the end is clear and felt as real, the means must come. They are justified, sanctified, and drawn into alignment by the spiritual force of your assumed completion. Consciousness is the foundation upon which all things are built. It is not just part of your experience, it is the source of it. Everything you see, hear, touch, and live through arises from states of consciousness you have occupied, either deliberately or unconsciously. There is no reality outside of what you are aware of being. The outer world, with all its forms and circumstances, is nothing more than a reflection of the inner state you maintain. What you call reality is a projection of your inner assumptions, beliefs, and emotions. You do not see the world as it is, you see it as you are. Change your inner state, your conception of yourself, your assumptions about life, and your entire experience will change accordingly. This is not philosophy, it is law. Nothing happens in your world that does not first happen in your awareness. Consciousness is the cause, and the world is the effect. If you believe in struggle, life confirms it. If you believe you are unwanted, you will experience rejection. But if you assume yourself to be loved, secure, and worthy, the world will mirror those truths back to you. The key is not to fight the outer world, but to rise in consciousness, to shift your awareness to a higher state where the desired reality already exists. This is why outer efforts often fail without inner alignment. You can take massive action, say the right words, or make the perfect plans, but if your inner state contradicts your desire, the results will be fleeting or absent. What you are conscious of being always overrides what you do. Your world is your consciousness, objectified. There is no power outside of this, no external force shaping your life, no fate deciding for you. It is always your awareness. What you accept as true, what you give attention to, what you feel deeply, that molds your path. And because consciousness is the only reality, nothing truly changes until you change your inner state. To live differently, you must first be different in awareness. So the answer is never found in chasing circumstances. It is found in assuming the identity of the one who already lives the life you seek. Live in that state. Think from that place. Feel from that truth. And all things will reorganize to reflect the reality you now claim. For consciousness alone gives life to all things. Persistence is the bridge between the unseen and the seen. It is the steady, unwavering loyalty to the state you have chosen to occupy, the state where your desire is already fulfilled. This is not about force or effort in the traditional sense. It is about remaining faithful to your inner vision, even when the outer world shows no evidence of change. Most people give up too soon. They waver, question, or abandon the state when results do not come quickly. But the law does not fail, only the application does. When you persist in assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you impress that state upon the subconscious. And once it is impressed, it must express. But like planting a seed in the ground, the harvest is not immediate. There is a period of gestation, of unseen activity. During that time, your job is to remain mentally in the to continue feeling, thinking, and responding from the place where the desire is already real. If you allow doubt or appearances to shake your assumption, you uproot the seed and start again. That is what successful. Persistence means repetition of the inner act, not out of desperation, but out of certainty. You return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not to make it happen, but because you know it is happening. You hold to the vision even in the silence, even in the delay, even in contradiction, because you understand that all appearances are temporary, but your assumption, if sustained, will become fact. You must persist not just once a day, but throughout the day. Every time your thoughts drift to fear, lack, or unworthiness, you gently guide them back. You think from the end, not of it. You live in the conviction that what you desire is already yours, and in doing so, you anchor yourself in the state that calls it forth. The subconscious accepts whatever you persistently assume to be true, whether it's wanted or unwanted. But choose carefully, be deliberate, be consistent. Persistence is a sign of belief. It says, I trust the process. I do not need evidence to keep going. I know who I am in consciousness, and I refuse to betray that knowing by reacting to the temporary. Stay in the state, hold the feeling, and life will bend to match your sustained inner reality. For what you persist in being inwardly, you must become outwardly. To dwell in the end is to make the fulfilled desire your home in consciousness. It means you no longer identify with the lack, the need, or the problem. You do not analyze how bad things are, nor do you rehearse what's missing. Instead, you shift your awareness entirely to the result, the solution already experienced, the desire already achieved. You think from the state of your wish fulfilled, not about it, as something distant or uncertain. You live as though it were already done. When you dwell in the problem, you give life to it. You reinforce it through attention, through feeling, through speech. Every time you complain, worry, or question how something will come about, you anchor yourself deeper in the very state you wish to leave. But the moment you move your consciousness to the end, when you begin to feel as though it were already true, you withdraw power from the problem and transfer it to the solution. You no longer need to fight the circumstance because you have already risen above it in mind. This is not denial, it is dominion. You are not ignoring reality, you are choosing to create a new one by refusing to energize what no longer serves you. The outer world may still present the facts of limitation, but you no longer accept them as final. You have replaced them in imagination with a new truth, and that truth becomes your point of focus. You don't just visit it, you dwell in it, you return to it in thought, you align your feelings with it, you speak from it, and act as though nothing else were more real. This shift is subtle but profound. Most people are so occupied with solving their problems that they never leave them. They become experts in their lack, constantly reminding themselves of what they need rather than assuming they already have it. But consciousness responds not to need, but to assumption. To dwell in the end is to embody the answer, to feel the relief, the gratitude, the confidence that comes when the thing is already done. The problem may seem urgent, but the only real urgency is to change your state. When you dwell in the end, the problem loses its hold. It fades into irrelevance because you are no longer vibrating in harmony with it. You are aligned with the solution, and from that alignment, the outer world must shift to reflect your new inner position. You do not chase results, you live them inwardly, and let life echo your decision. The moment you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you set in motion a series of events that will lead you from your current reality to the one you have imagined. You do not need to know how it will happen, nor can you predict the sequence, but the way will unfold, often in unexpected, subtle, and perfectly coordinated ways. This unfolding is known as the bridge of incidents. It is life's natural reorganization in response to your changed state of consciousness. You are not to force this bridge or even try to identify it as it forms. Your responsibility is simply to remain faithful to the end you have claimed. From that inner certainty, the bridge arises. Conversations, opportunities, delays, losses, sudden inspirations, all become part of the path, even if they don't appear related to your desire at first. Nothing is accidental. Everything serves the fulfillment of the state you now occupy. Often the bridge is so natural that it may not feel miraculous. You may look back only after the fact and realize how perfectly it was all arranged. But at the time, the incidents may seem ordinary or even inconvenient. You may be led to take action or be prompted to wait. A door may close only to lead you to the right one. Someone you meet briefly could shift your entire course. All of it is connected, not by logic, but by the unseen intelligence that responds to your inner world. The key is not to disrupt the unfolding by doubting or interfering. If you try to control the path, you step out of the state of the wish fulfilled and fall back into the problem. Trust the process. What you have accepted as real in imagination is finding its way into form. The bridge may be short or long, direct or winding, but it is always perfect. You don't need to build it. You only need to walk it, moment by moment, in faith and persistence. Do not confuse the bridge with the end itself. Circumstances are not the fulfillment, they are the preparation. Maintain your inner vision, stay emotionally loyal to your desired reality, and life will continue to arrange the outer pieces until the full picture appears. And when it does, it will feel natural, inevitable, and right. Because the bridge of incidents, though invisible at first, was always leading you exactly where you intended to go. Faith is not a blind leap into the unknown. It is the clear, certain vision of what is true before the senses can confirm it. It is the ability to see with the inner eye, the eye of imagination and feeling, rather than the outer eye that depends on physical evidence. When you have faith, you accept the reality of your desire as if it already exists, even though it has not yet appeared in your physical world. But this kind of seeing is an act of consciousness. It requires a shift from doubt and disbelief to trust and assurance. It means choosing to believe in the unseen rather than being limited by the seen. The world of form is always lagging behind the world of thought and feeling. What you see now is the effect of previous states of consciousness. Faith is knowing that the cause already exists, even if its effects have not yet manifested. Faith is an unwavering inner knowing that the invisible is more real than the visible. It is a spiritual certainty that your imagination is the true source of reality, and that by seeing with your inner eye, you draw what you desire into manifestation. Without this faith, the mind will vacillate, and the will weaken. Doubt and fear will cloud the vision, and the desire will remain out of reach. To cultivate this faith, you must practice seeing your wish fulfilled in vivid detail. Picture it clearly. Feel the emotions that would naturally arise if it were true. Hold that vision steadily, day and night, without wavering. When you do this, you align yourself with the creative power that shapes all existence. Faith also dispels the illusions of time and delay. It knows that the future is already present in the mind of consciousness, and that by steadfastly maintaining the vision, you shorten the gap between imagination and reality. It is faith that moves mountains, not the physical effort, but the spiritual certainty of what is already done. So faith is not passive. It is a dynamic force that empowers you to live as though your desire is certain, regardless of current appearances. It is seeing with the inner eye, embracing the invisible, and trusting that what you imagine and feel now will inevitably become what you see behind every experience in your life. This means that it is not outside forces, circumstances, or other people that determine your reality. It is your own consciousness that shapes everything you perceive and encounter. You are the creative force, the source energy from which all events, relationships, and conditions flow. Recognizing this is both empowering and humbling, for it places full responsibility and full potential in your hands. Many look to external causes and effects, believing that life happens to them, that luck or fate governs their outcomes. But in truth, the external world is merely a reflection of your internal state. Your thoughts, feelings, and assumptions are like seeds planted in the fertile ground of your mind, and the life you live is the harvest. If you want different fruit, you must change what you plant. This power is not separate from you. It is your very essence. The power to imagine, to assume, and to persist in a certain feeling is the power that brings form to the formless. You are not a victim of circumstances. You are the architect. You construct your world moment by moment through the beliefs you accept and the consciousness you inhabit. When you fully realize that you are the operant power, you no longer wait for conditions to change. You do not depend on others to provide or approve. Instead, you take authority over your inner state and align yourself with the reality you desire. This internal mastery triggers the corresponding changes outside. To live as the operant power is to live consciously, deliberately, and creatively. It is to know that nothing exists or persists outside of your awareness, and that by changing your assumptions, you change your experience. The power to transform your life is always in your hands. It has never been anywhere else. So, embrace your role as the cause of all effects. Take ownership of your consciousness and realize that the life you want is drawn to you by the force of your own imagining. You are the power, the cause, and the creator. When you live from this understanding, all things become possible. Remember, the reality you experience is born from the consciousness you choose to inhabit. You are not a powerless observer drifting through life. You are the very source of your experience, the operant power behind every moment. When you dare to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, when you persist faithfully and dwell in the end instead of the problem, you stepped into the realm where the unseen becomes seen. Trust in this creative power within you. Hold fast to the vision of your highest desires. Ignore the limiting facts of the present and know that the bridge of incidents will appear to carry you to your goal. Your faith is the lens through which you see your future, vibrant, real, and inevitable. Live boldly in this knowing, for when you do, you align yourself with the infinite power of consciousness itself, and there is nothing that can stand in the way of your manifestation. You are the creator of your reality. Claim that power now and watch the world transform before your very eyes.